When my husband Mark and I moved into Willow Creek Estates 3 years ago, we thought we'd found paradise. The neighborhood was picture perfect, with its manicured lawns, cheerful flower beds, and tree-lined streets where kids rode bikes until sunset. Our daughter Emma was 11 then, a bright-eyed girl who loved soccer, art class, and making friends with every kid on the block. The houses were beautiful, the schools were paraded, and everyone seemed friendly during those first few weeks of casserole drop-offs and welcome wagon visits. But we quickly learned that every paradise has its serpent, and ours came in the form of Patricia Hendricks, the HOA president. Patricia was in her late 50s, always impeccably dressed in business casual attire even on weekends, with short blonde hair styled in that aggressive soccer mom cut that somehow communicated both authority and hostility. She lived in the largest house at the end of our cul-de-sac, a sprawling colonial with columns that she treated like a command center for neighborhood surveillance. The first time we encountered Patricia's particular brand of tyranny was over our mailbox. Apparently, the previous owners had painted it navy blue, which was exactly one shade too dark, according to the HOA bylaws. We received a certified letter demanding we repaint it regulation colonial blue within 14 days or face a fine. Mark thought I was overreacting when I said this woman would be trouble, but I'd seen her type before. People who obsess over mailbox colors are really obsessing over control. Over the next 2 years, Patricia found endless reasons to harass our family and others in the neighborhood. She measured our grass with a ruler to prove it exceeded the 3-inch maximum height. She issued citations because Emma's sidewalk chalk drawings were defacing common property. She called the police when our golden retriever, Bailey, barked at a squirrel at 7:30 on a Saturday morning, claiming it violated noise ordinances. Other families had similar stories: fines for Halloween decorations left up too long, warnings about children's toys visible from the street, threats over the wrong species of shrubs planted near property lines. But Patricia's obsession seemed to focus particularly on Emma. Maybe it was because Emma was naturally exuberant, or the kind of kid who laughed loudly and organized neighborhood kickball games and didn't understand why anyone would care about painted mailboxes. Patricia hated joy, I became convinced. She'd glare at Emma riding her bike, make snide comments about unsupervised children running wild. Once even tried to ban kids from using the neighborhood playground after 4 p.m. because it was too noisy for nearby residents. The other parents and I tried to work around her. We taught our kids to be extra careful, to clean up meticulously after themselves, to keep voices down near Patricia's house. We attended HOA meetings and tried to vote her out, but she'd stacked the board with her friends, and the bylaws made removal nearly impossible without proof of serious misconduct. Our lawyer said that unless she did something actually illegal, we were stuck with her petty tyranny. Emma handled it better than I did. She'd shrug off Patricia's glares and say, "That's just Mrs. Hendricks being Mrs. Hendricks's mom." My daughter had inherited my husband's even temperament. Thank God she didn't let bitter people steal her sunshine. She kept getting straight A's at Willow Creek Middle School, kept playing soccer, kept being the kind of kid who made friendship bracelets for everyone in her class. I should have seen the signs that Patricia's obsession was escalating beyond normal HOA Karen behavior. The way she'd sometimes just stand at the end of her driveway, watching Emma walk to the bus stop. The increasingly unhinged emails about property value threats and decline in neighborhood standards. The time she showed up at our door at 10 p.m. to complain about Emma's bedroom light being too bright and disrupting the street's aesthetic. Mark said I was being paranoid when I suggested we file a restraining order. "She's annoying, not dangerous," he'd said. God, how wrong we were. The day everything changed started like any other Tuesday. Emma had a soccer game after school, so I'd packed her sports bag that morning along with extra snacks and her water bottle. She'd been excited because scouts from the regional team were supposedly coming to watch. At 13, she'd grown into a talented midfielder, fast and strategic, and her coach thought she had a real shot at making a competitive team. I was at work when my phone rang at 2:15 p.m. The caller ID showed Willow Creek Middle School. My stomach dropped before I even answered, that maternal instinct that knows when something's wrong. "Mrs. Peterson, this is Principal Howard. There's been an incident involving Emma. She's being transported to County General Hospital right now. You need to meet her there." The drive to the hospital was a blur of running red lights and frantic calls to Mark, who was in a meeting downtown. Principal Howard had been frustratingly vague on the phone, saying only that there had been an altercation and that Emma was conscious but injured. My mind spiraled through possibilities. A soccer accident during practice, a fall downstairs, a fight with another student. Never in a million years would I have guessed the truth. I found Emma in the emergency room, and my heart shattered. My baby girl was lying on a gurney, the left side of her face already swelling into a grotesque purple bruise. Her arm was in a temporary splint, and she had a gash across her shoulder that a nurse was cleaning. But worse than the physical injuries was the look in her eyes, pure terror. Emma, my fearless kid who'd never met a challenge she didn't tackle head-on, looked absolutely traumatized. "Mom," she sobbed when she saw me. and I rushed to her side, careful not to jostle her injuries. "I'm okay, I promise. It looks worse than it is." "What happened?" I demanded, turning to the nurse. "Where's the doctor? Why wasn't I called sooner?" Before the nurse could answer, Principal Howard appeared in the doorway, looking pale and shaken, accompanied by 2 police officers. Behind them, I could see school security footage being reviewed on someone's phone. My confusion was rapidly transforming into rage as the story began to emerge. Emma had been walking out to the soccer field after school, cutting through the parking lot where parents sometimes assembled for pickup. That's when Patricia Hendricks appeared. According to witnesses, Patricia had been sitting in her car in the school parking lot for over an hour, watching the building. The moment she saw Emma, she jumped out of her vehicle and confronted her. She started yelling about Bailey getting into her flower beds, Emma told me, her voice shaking. I tried to tell her I didn't know what she was talking about, that Bailey's been at home all week, but she wouldn't stop screaming. She said our family was destroying the neighborhood, that we were trash, who didn't belong in Willow Creek Estates. Multiple students and teachers witnessed what happened next. Patricia had reached into her car and grabbed a metal rod, later identified as a tire iron, from her trunk. She'd advanced on Emma, still screaming about property values and HOA violations and how our family needed to be dealt with. Emma had backed away, but Patricia was faster, fueled by whatever deranged obsession had driven her to the school. "I tried to run," Emma whispered, tears streaming down her face. "But she swung it at me. Mom, she actually tried to hit me with it." Emma had thrown up her arm defensively, which took the brunt of the blow and probably saved her from a skull fracture. The tire iron struck her forearm with enough force to fracture her radius. The momentum carried Patricia forward, and as Emma fell, the woman swung again, the rod glancing off Emma's face and shoulder. Teachers weren't running toward them by then, screaming for Patricia to stop, and someone had already called 911. It took 3 staff members to restrain Patricia, who kept trying to get to Emma, still ranting about HOA violations and property standards. School security footage captured everything in horrifying detail. A grown woman attacking a 13-year-old child with a weapon, in broad daylight, on school property, in front of dozens of witnesses. The doctors confirmed Emma had a fractured radius requiring a cast, severe bruising across her face and shoulder, and minor lacerations. They wanted to keep her overnight for observation because she'd briefly lost consciousness when she fell. More concerning was the psychological trauma. My outgoing, confident daughter had been attacked by an adult she'd known her entire time in Willow Creek. Someone who'd gone from being an annoying neighborhood busybody to an actual violent threat. Mark arrived at the hospital within an hour, having broken every speed limit from downtown. Seeing his little girl injured unleashed a protective fury I'd rarely witnessed in my usually calm husband. We sat with Emma while she gave her statement to the police, her voice small and scared as she recounted how Mrs. Hendricks had been acting. We were around her for months, watching her constantly, making increasingly hostile comments. The police officers were sympathetic, but thorough. They explained that Patricia had been arrested at the scene and charged with assault with a deadly weapon against a minor, among other charges. Because it occurred on school property and involved a child, the district attorney was treating it extremely seriously. They had already obtained the security footage, and with dozens of witnesses, they said the case was solid. But then came the disturbing part. When police searched Patricia's car and later her home with a warrant, they found evidence of an escalating obsession. Patricia had been keeping detailed logs of Emma's activities. What time she left for school, when she got home, who visited our house, even what Emma wore each day. She had photographs of Emma taken from a distance, printed schedules of Emma's soccer practices and games, and pages of handwritten rants about our family destroying the neighborhood. Forensic psychologists would later testify that Patricia appeared to have developed a delusional fixation, convinced that our family and specifically Emma represented some existential threat to her control over the neighborhood. The HOA presidency had been Patricia's entire identity after she'd been forced into early retirement from her corporate job. When families like ours didn't bow to her authority, it challenged her sense of self. Emma, with her natural charisma and popularity among neighborhood kids, became the focus of Patricia's unraveling mental state. The investigation revealed that other neighbors had filed complaints about Patricia's behavior that the HOA board had buried. One family had Ring doorbell footage of Patricia peering into their windows at night. Another had reported her following their teenage son home from school. The HOA's attorney admitted they'd known Patricia was becoming difficult, but claimed they had no legal authority to remove her without clear evidence of misconduct. Now, facing liability for failing to act, they were scrambling. The legal process moved surprisingly quickly, with overwhelming evidence and the severity of the charges. Patricia's lawyer advised her to accept a plea deal rather than risk trial. She pleaded guilty to aggravated assault and received a 6-year prison sentence, followed by probation and mandatory psychiatric treatment. The judge was scathing in his remarks, calling her actions a parent's worst nightmare and noting that Emma would carry both physical and emotional scars for years. Our civil lawsuit, against both Patricia and the HOA was settled for a substantial sum. More importantly, it forced the HOA to completely restructure its governance, implement term limits, and create oversight mechanisms to prevent future abuses of power. Several board members who'd enabled Patricia's behavior resigned. The new leadership actually apologized to us and the other families Patricia had harassed. Emma's physical healing took months. The cast came off after 8 weeks, followed by physical therapy to regain full mobility in her arm. The bruises faded. The scars became less noticeable. But the psychological impact ran deeper. Emma developed anxiety, especially around unexpected confrontations or loud voices. She had nightmares about the attack. We enrolled her in therapy with a trauma specialist who worked with child victims of violence. Slowly, painfully, Emma began to reclaim herself. Her therapist helped her process the attack without letting it define her. Emma returned to school, though we'd offered to transfer her anywhere she wanted. "I'm not letting her take my school from me," Emma said with a flash of her old spirit. Her friends rallied around her, and the school provided additional security and support. The neighborhood changed too. Patricia's house sat empty for months before finally selling at a significant loss. Many families who'd been intimidated by Patricia for years came forward with their own stories. There was a collective sense of relief that the tyranny was over. Kids played more freely. People stopped obsessing over whether their grass was exactly 3 inches or their holiday decorations came down precisely on time. Emma even returned to soccer, though it took time to regain her confidence. The first time she took the field after the attack, I watched from the stands with my heart in my throat, terrified something would go wrong. But Emma played beautifully, scoring 2 goals. After the game, she told me something I'll never forget. "Mrs. Hendricks tried to break me, but she just made me realize how strong I actually am." Today, Emma is 15. The physical scars have mostly faded, and with continued therapy, the emotional ones are healing too. She's captain of her soccer team, maintains a 4.0 GPA, and has become an advocate for neighborhood safety. Speaking at community meetings about the importance of addressing concern and behavior before it, Escalades. We still live in Willow Creek Estates. Some people asked why we didn't move, but Emma insisted we stay. "This is our home," she said. "We're not running." She's right. The neighborhood is finally what we thought it was when we moved in. A community where kids can be kids, where people look out for each other instead of policing minor infractions, where mailbox colors matter far less than human kindness. Patricia will be eligible for parole eventually, but part of her sentence includes a permanent restraining order keeping her away from Emma, our family, and Willow Creek Estates. I hope she gets the help she clearly needs, but mostly, I hope she stays far away from us. The incident taught us that tyranny, even of the HOA variety, shouldn't be tolerated or normalized. When someone's behavior escalates, when obsession becomes clear, action must be taken. We learned that protecting property values is meaningless if we're not protecting people, especially children. And we learned that Emma is stronger than any of us knew, a survivor who refused to let one person's violence steal her joy.